Hey guys, Sean here and welcome to the F1 Word. Now, reverse grid qualifying races have been the topic of debate for a while now, and despite the proposals to trial some this season being rejected by teams, Formula 1 bosses are still trying to push through the idea of shaking up qualifying at a few events in 2021. The new proposed format would, if pushed through, see drivers line up in reverse championship order on a Saturday afternoon, race for 30 minutes, and whatever the finishing order ends up being, that would be the grid for the race proper. No championship points would be handed out, with that being reserved as usual for Sunday's Grand Prix. As covered last week, drivers were for the most part very much against the idea, and team bosses took a similar stance over the Russian Grand Prix weekend, which makes it look increasingly unlikely reverse grid races will become a thing. That said, things are changing in Formula 1. Previously, if regulation changes were to be made, teams would have to show their unanimous support and vote in favour of the changes for them to go through, hence why the attempted shake-up of qualifying failed earlier this year. However, with the new Concord Agreement in place, what is described as a super majority is all that is needed. That means 28 of 30 votes must go in favour of a proposal for a change to be implemented. And if you're wondering, Formula 1 hold 10 votes, as do the FIA, and the teams get 1 vote each. So the idea of reverse grid races could well become a thing, and on paper, that might seem to be the case. Here's the reality though. Mercedes and Racing Point have already made it perfectly clear that they would not support the proposals, and at Sochi, McLaren and Renault both voiced their apparent opposition. That would mean, assuming no other teams come out against the idea, the change would only receive a maximum of 26 votes, falling short of that super majority. Therefore, it actually looks unlikely the reverse grid qualifying races will be implemented next season at some events. There is no doubt whatsoever Formula 1 will keep pushing though, and they have put the ideas to fans in a poll. So if the poll were to come back in favour of the changes, teams might change their minds, but I seriously doubt it. Where do I stand on it all then? Well, I've quite openly said this year that we should at least give it a go. After all, 2020 is about as weird a year as we're likely to see, and with some tracks hosting back-to-back events, it would have been a great way to mix things up a bit. For example, they could have had a normal weekend for the British Grand Prix, and then gone for a reverse grid qualifying session for the 70th anniversary Grand Prix. It would have been something a little bit different. It would also finally answer the question once and for all. I cannot be the only one that is getting sick and tired of going over this every single season. Unless it's trialled, this whole debate is never going to go away. Every single time there is a slightly dull race, the media will start churning out the same old headlines. You know what I'm talking about, the old, is it time to give reverse grids a go? All in the hope that maybe Formula 1 pick it up and it might give us a bit more excitement. So, trial them. If they're great, let's see what can be done going forward. If they're terrible, throw them in the bin next to that knockout thing that was trialled back in 2016. At least that way, as I say, we'd have an answer and we can put the whole debate to bed. But as I said across the Russian Grand Prix weekend, I think it was a qualifying watch-along, it would just be papering over the cracks, something Ross Brawn didn't want to do. Qualifying is fine as it is. In fact, at some events, it's probably the most exciting part of the weekend, say Monaco, for example. The format, which was originally introduced back in 2006 and tweaked since, is massively popular with fans, and in my opinion anyway, gives us a great mix of action while still letting us enjoy the thrill of the perfect qualifying lap. And here's something as well. If reverse grid races had been introduced, let's say, 30 years ago, just imagine how many of those epic laps we'd have missed out on. Qualifying is not the issue. Quite simply, the cars are. Of course, F1 are trying to change that with the introduction of the new rules for 2022. And again, on paper, they look like a great starting point. And I'm sure we all hope they have the desired effect. But the fact of the matter is, the current crop of cars are far too big. That is something that gets said a lot. I'm not going to keep repeating it. I'll just reiterate it. They're too big. They also rely too much on those little aerodynamic tweaks such as the turning vanes and things like that. You know, the sort of thing that probably doesn't make a massive difference, but it's there because it makes some difference. And that helps to create far too much dirty air, or more specifically wake. And that in turn prevents the cars from being able to follow closely. Messing around with quick fixes that will only serve their purpose for a very short period of time is simply not the answer. F1 needs to stop with these, for the want of a better term, and trying to avoid a cliche, but I can't, they need to stop with these band-aids. It needs real change. Once the cars are able to follow each other more closely and the performance gap is closed up, exciting, close racing will inevitably follow, and again, hopefully 2022 will be the start of that. Another reason I'm almost, I suppose, changing my stance is what happened at Monza. F1 are using that as an example as to why reverse grid races should be introduced. I'm doing the opposite. That win for Pierre Gasly with Carlos Sainz second and Lance Stroll third was almost magical. The hype, the emotion, the shock, it was just incredible. Now, close your eyes for a second and just imagine Gasly had won the qualifying race in Belgium, Grosjean took the win on a Saturday in Spain, and Russell won qualifying at Silverstone. How special is Gasly's Monza win now? Don't get me wrong, of course the actual Grand Prix matters more than qualifying, but the point is, if we become used to seeing midfield and backmarker teams winning consistently on a Saturday, that excitement certainly dwindles if we see a shock win on a Sunday. I defend F1 a lot, but I know it can be massively predictable. In fact, assuming the race is straightforward, no drama, your top three is likely to be Hamilton, Bottas and Verstappen in some order. Or at least that's the situation right now. But it's that off chance of a surprise that helps to keep people coming back for more. So along with those epic qualifying pole laps, that's something else I don't want to lose. Look, overall I'm not totally against the idea of giving reverse grid races a go. But if they're not happening in 2020, I feel like that ship needs to sail. This year, again, given all of the chaos, would have been the perfect year to try them out. And although, 2021 will probably still see some disruption, it should be somewhere near a normal season, and therefore the idea of trying out new things will be less palatable with teams and fans alike, and probably less practical too. So basically, try them out, see how they go. But if they get implemented, it will just be a short-term fix to a long-term, far bigger problem, and the priority should be on getting the cars to a point where they are able to race far more closely. That is what should be the focus, not more gimmicks. And I hate the idea of losing qualifying altogether because there is just something so special about watching a driver at one with their car flat out and delivering the perfect qualifying lap to snatch a dramatic pole. I get it, F1, you want to shake things up, but please do not take that away. But anyway, what do you guys think? You can let me know your thoughts on reverse grid qualifying races down in the comment section. And also, actually, have you, I suppose like me, changed your stance on it all at all? Now, I will be back soon with more content as always, but in the meantime, don't forget that you can of course follow me over on social media, and all of the links you need for that are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.